Oh, yay! Nintendo's adding an expansion pack for their Nintendo Switch Online subscription to make you pay more money for old games that some of them should have been included already. There's just not enough here to justify a price increase. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
So, Nintendo Switch Online is a online subscription service from Nintendo. That's their take on like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, except it sucks. For a lot of games you have to use your phone for voice chat with Nintendo Switch Online. There's exceptions like Fortnite, for example, and Overwatch 2 as well. But it's a really, really mediocre service. And what stings about Nintendo Switch Online is that before they introduced the service a couple years back, you could just play the games. Like, if you wanted to play Splatoon 2, you could just play it online without paying extra. But then they're like, hey, here's a paywall. The game that you were just playing before online, well, now there's a paywall. It's not an expensive paywall. For 12 months, if you just get the individual membership, is only $20 a year. But still, it was free to play before. Now you're just making someone pay now to play online and not really offering any benefits, except you just drip feed a bunch of old NES and SNES games to people. That's it. And a lot of your games don't even have voice chat built in, Nintendo, like your competitors do. What were you thinking? And obviously it's going to be successful, because if people want to play games online on their Switch, they have to sign up for it in most cases. There's exceptions, but most cases. Well, anyway, yesterday Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct, and there were some cool things like ActRaiser Renaissance caught my eye. Dying Light, the original one, is coming to the Switch. Dying Light 2, they're going to have a cloud version, which, whatever. But it wasn't the worst Nintendo Direct that I've seen. It was okay. But they announced something called the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. It's a real cute way to word something that shouldn't exist. And now they're going to offer Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games. Yay! This comes from TheVerge.com. I'll read it to you, read you the list of games, and then we'll discuss, and I'll tell you why this annoys me. Nintendo is adding a new membership tier to Nintendo Switch Online that lets you play Nintendo 64 games and Sega Genesis games. The new tier, called Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, will be officially released in late October. Nintendo didn't share pricing. I'll talk more about that in a minute. I heard some rumors on the pricing, but we'll have to see. And promised it will share more news ahead of the official launch date, but the company did share the games you'll be able to play when it launches, which includes some of the biggest hits across both of the classic consoles. Here's the launch lineup of the N64 games: Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Sin and Punishment, Dr. Mario 64, Mario Tennis 64, Winback, and Yoshi's Story. N64 games that will be coming in the future are Banjo-Kazooie, Pokemon Snap, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Kirby 64, The Golden Shards, Mario Golf, Paper Mario, F-Zero X. And now here's a list of Sega Genesis games that you'll get, which you could have purchased in 3 billion different ways throughout the years: Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Streets of Rage 2, Echo the Dolphin, Castlevania Bloodlines, one of my favorite Castlevania games, Contra Hardcore, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, everyone's just lining up to play that one, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, Musha, Phantasy Star 4, Rystar, Shining Force, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, and Strider. Strider is a classic, one of my favorite Sega Genesis games. And they're going to have Switch versions of the Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis controllers, which will be wireless, and they'll be $50 each. Which that's cool, fine, whatever, even though I hate the Nintendo 64 controller, but it'll be interesting to see a modernized replica of that by Nintendo themselves and see how that performs. I will probably pick up out of curiosity, and the Sega Genesis controller. But anyway, back to the service itself. Nintendo, your online service is poor. And that's me being generous. Like I said, a lot of games you need to have a phone app to do voice communication on. The only benefit you offered to people was, hey, now we have a paywall up that you have to pay if you want to play games like Splatoon 2 online or Mario Kart 8. If you don't pay, you don't get to play. Gee, what are my options? My options are pay, or pay. And then you have these old games. Now, look, if they also offered, like people said last night, if they also offered maybe GBA, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance and lumped that in here, I would reluctantly say, okay, that's a ton of games. I know they're older games, but if they want to charge $5 to $10 more a year for that service where you're getting all of those games, sure. But Nintendo, if you want to ask for more money, now I'm hearing the rumor that it's going to be $10 more a year if you want to sign up for the expansion pack, which is absolutely insane to me. I hope it's cheaper than that, but that's what I hear. But even if it's cheaper than that, I feel like all of these games, from the Genesis to the N64 to the Super Nintendo and the NES, they should be included at the same price. You're really just regurgitating mostly a bunch of games that you could get a billion different ways on a billion different platforms, especially the Sega Genesis games. How many collections have been out there that you could get those games, whether it be from Konami or Sega themselves? This doesn't justify the price increase. Why don't you improve the service? Why don't you improve the online service? Why don't you make voice communication easier, like I said before? Do things like that, and that would make people not complain when you talk about Nintendo Switch Online. I've said this for years from when the service was first announced. You have two of your competitors who laid out the blueprint, especially I would say Microsoft, because Sony had to play catch up with their online service, but it's pretty good now. But especially Microsoft, they laid out the plan for you. They handed you a softball. This is how you run an online service. Why aren't you following it? Why aren't you, like, these older games that people could play on emulators, which I'm not condoning piracy, but it's real and it exists and it's out there, isn't enough of an incentive. And you know that, but the thing is, like, hey, you want to play certain games online, you got to pay. And you're making this like it's an exciting thing. Here, if you want to play these extra games that we should just include with our mediocre service, pay more. Also, buy these controller replicas for $50 each. But I'm sure it'll do well. It's Nintendo. But I'm sorry, this to me is anti-consumer. Your online service isn't great, and you're making people pay more for games that are 20, 30 plus years old. Yay. Great job. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.